Hey everybody, Jason here. So today we're going to talk about one of the most important pieces of equipment you can have for camping and bushcraft. What I'm talking about is your tarp. So there's a lot of different materials for tarps. Typically, the most popular ones are made of Sil Nylon, okay? If you're not familiar with what Sil Nylon is basically nylon fabric that's been impregnated with silicone. Okay, now the silicone makes it waterproof, but it also increases its tear resistance. Okay, so when it comes to tarps, size does matter. Basically, if you're going out into the woods with one or two people, I'd recommend getting a 3 meter by 3 meter tarp. Now that's typically listed as 10 feet by 10 feet. Really, it's a little over 9 feet each way. There are less expensive, cheaper tarps out there. When I started out, I used poly tarps and plastic sheets. The thing is, plastic sheets don't last. They tear and they rip, and then you have a piece of gear out in the field with you that's basically useless. And poly tarps are heavy and bulky. So poly tarps are relatively okay for, a first time trip that you're just starting out and you want something that will provide a bit of rain protection. But the thing is, they're not even that waterproof. Poly tarps do leak. You can start out with a poly tarp, but the problem is, even if it's your first trip out, you want to have a good experience. If you're taking someone out for their first time, you want them to have a good experience. And getting wet, whether from water soaking up under the floor of your tent or being out in the rain and needing shelter from it, really doesn't add to an experience to make it a good one. How much bulk are we talking about? Well, I've got this poly tarp and it measures 9 feet by 7 feet, so 63 square feet. This is pretty much as tight as it will go to pack up. And in comparison, I've got my Sil Nylon tarp, which is just shy of 10 feet by 10 feet. And in fact, it will still compress smaller. This one here is 92 square feet of coverage. Like I said, 63. So we're talking about a difference of 30 square feet of shelter space. And that much difference in bulk for packing. Now, not only that, but I can take this and put it inside of my full tarp kit, which contains all of my ropes, my tent pegs, a pulley, and a few compression straps. And although it looks bulky, it does actually still pack down quite a bit less than the poly tarp. Okay, so we know the value of good quality equipment. Poly tarps are big, they're bulky, and they leak. Plastic sheeting tears. Sil Nylon is durable, lightweight, and waterproof. Now, there's other considerations to take when you're shopping around for a Sil Nylon tarp. Look for things like, how are the grommets attached? Are there strap tie points? How are they sewn in? How is the sewing done all up? Is it reinforced with tape? Does the tarp come with a warranty? Once you find a good quality tarp, then we can start talking about the tarp layouts. Okay, so as far as tarp layouts go, there's easy ones and there's more difficult ones. But really, if you take your time, you can even master the difficult ones. In many cases, what changes it up is the gear you have to work with. What I'm talking about is, aside from having the tarp of the size that you've purchased, you're also going to require things like tent pegs, maybe some paracord, maybe a pulley, maybe hiking poles, or even, a branch or two out of the bush. So in the series, I'm going to show several different ways to set up your tarp, and please, if you have any questions, leave a comment below. Okay, so what I've done is I've just packed in my tarp and my other kit into just a simple shoulder pack. Now, the reason is, with a simple shoulder bag like this, a rucksack of some sort, you can pack away your tarp, a fire starter, bottle of water, and snack, and be relatively, good to go for a hike, and even if something happened that you got stuck out for the night, you'd be okay. So inside my sack here, I've got my Sil Nylon tarp, okay, which comes in a Sil Nylon bag that helps keep everything, you know, dry inside. And you know, the tarp that I use, you know, I shopped around quite a bit, and you know, I found the AquaQuest, a Canadian company. The tarp, it's a 3 meter by 3 meter. It came with tent pegs, some straps, and a 2-year warranty. Also really good reviews online, so I picked one up. I've used it a couple times, and I have to say it is, you know, definitely worth recommending. So here you go. Shout out to AquaQuest. Okay, so the first tarp layout I'm going to show you is definitely the easiest, and probably because it's the easiest, it's often overlooked with instruction, and you know, I don't want to say mistakes, but little things get missed that could be done better. So let's have a look at the basic ground sheet. Okay, so the ground sheet. Definitely the easiest tarp layout there is, but there are a few little points that you want to do. The first is to just make sure that the area that you're setting up is free of any debris that could potentially cause a tear into your tarp and also be uncomfortable to sit on. Alright, so now with the area clear, what I'm going to need is my tarp as well as my tent pegs. For now, I'm just going to stick my pegs in my pocket, and we'll pull out the tarp. So again, like I said, this tarp is a 3 meter by 3 meter Sil Nylon tarp. Okay, so as you can see, what I've done is I've opened up the tarp full size on the ground. Now, as you can imagine, that's a little bit overkill being by myself. Really, my size of a footprint is half that size. So what I'm gonna do is just fold it so that it's half the width and the full length out. Okay, so now it's a good size, and even if I wanted to, I could potentially fold it again and just make it a small square. But, you know, maybe after eating, I might want to lie down for a bit. Okay, so now that I have the tarp laid out to an appropriate size for me, what I'm going to do is take out my tent pegs, and I'm going to peg out the 4 corners. Now, earlier I talked about, you know, quality in construction, and with this tarp I have tie points, you know, located strategically along the perimeter of the tarp that make tying it out perfect. So as you can see, I'm going to start out putting a peg in the corner, and I'm going to go down to the far corner here. Then the next corner. And then last corner. Okay, so this is the super easy ground sheet tarp layout. Now, if you're planning to put a tent over top of your ground sheet, I have 2 recommendations. The first is to double up your ground sheet, just like I have done here. And the reason is, sometimes you'll have little sticks or stones just below the surface of the ground, and once you start moving around in your tent, they poke up. So doubling up your tarp will just, you know, add that extra protection to your tarp, but also to the bottom of your tent. The second point, which is by far the most important, is when you lay up your tent to make sure that all of your tarp is underneath your tent. So don't let any of the corners or edges of your tarp hang out past your tent. And the reason is, if you have unexpected rain throughout the night, that rain's gonna fall and land on your tarp, then it's gonna run underneath your tent where it's going to pool, and then it's gonna absorb up through your tent. Okay, so the next shelter we're gonna look at is a really easy one and very popular. It's the Plough Point, or the diamond fly shelter. So this is a really popular bushcraft tarp shelter. The good things about this shelter is it offers really good shelter from the rain, sun, and wind. And because of the angle of the tarp shelter, it offers good rain runoff. It also only needs one tree, so that makes it really convenient to set up. The negatives of this shelter is that it has no floor and there's no protection on one side of the shelter. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay out the tarp so that corners are lined up with the tree, or where I'm gonna tie off and with my ridgeline later on. And the first thing I'm gonna do is stake out the back corner. Okay, so now with the back corner staked off, I'm not going to do the side corners, but instead I'm going to go straight across to the opposite corner, tie a running bowline, and then tie it off to the tree. Once that's finished, I'll stake off the two side corners. Okay, so there you have it. Super easy to set up, the Plough Point. Now, if you want to add a little bit more headspace, again, you can take a stick, use the bag that your tarp came in, and then come inside. And for me, with the AquaQuest tarp, it's reinforced in the center, and so I aim for that section. And as you can see, it lifts it up quite nicely. Thanks again for watching. If you'd like to see other tarp shelters or tarp layouts, then check out our playlist. If you found this video useful or you've enjoyed it, then please give it the thumbs up and leave a comment. And also, if you haven't yet subscribed, please do. Okay? Thanks for watching.